All right, as we continue to move forward in Module 1, we are past our introductions in the voice thread. If you haven't posted your introduction, you'll want to go ahead and do that right away. But we're now looking at the instructional design philosophy activity, and today is our last day to post your responses to that, and then we'll be moving on to identifying assessments that align with our learning outcomes. That's the heavy lifting for the week. Now, as we continue to think about our instructional design philosophy, I wanted to look at a few models with you and provide some stimulus to our thinking there. One of the models I used early on was Kolb's learning style model, which had a concrete experience. You did some observation, some abstract conceptualization, then you moved into experimentation, and you kind of kept this reflective model going. Well, most of the models that we're looking at are some familiar tried and true models like ADDIE, and there is a reason it's been around for a long time. Now, one of the things you have to balance with your instructional design model is the faculty receptivity, as well as how much can a faculty member handle. In other words, we can have a model that we use as instructional designers, but the model that we present to faculty can be a more truncated or a little bit more simplistic, because these are waters that we're swimming in the deep end of the pool, so to speak, but a lot of times faculty who have never taught online are coming in, so something like Gagne's non-events of instruction can seem very overwhelming. So again, there's that part therapist, part learning designer. How much does the learner or the student or the faculty, in this case, how much is actually helpful, right? Another taxonomy to think about is, and again, this is similar to Bloom, is Crotwell's taxonomy of affective domains. And when you think about this, a lot of learning depends on the affective acceptance of the material or information. So Crotwell's is another one to look at and consider. A model that I use in my design is the community of inquiry model, and that is the social, cognitive, and teaching presence, and how that all works into the educational experience. Let me tell you what I've done with it. I call it the COI plus one. I've kind of tweaked it. I look at the device or the platform that is being used, and then how the relationships of teacher to student, student to content, student to student, and then student to other are formulated, but also designed for throughout the learning experience. Let me give you an example. The teacher-to-student connection is often mediated through the learning management system. That can be your welcome video, a screencast, such as we're looking right now, introduction forums, perhaps a Flipgrid discussion forum, things like that, posting a welcome video. What are ways the teacher and the student are going to connect? And then how is the student going to connect in content? A lot of times it could be something like a textbook, an online textbook. And how are students then going to relate in the LMS or outside the LMS to the content of the course and achieve those learning objectives? Then how is the student going to connect with each other? And then I put other. So let me break that down just a little bit further. When we talk about the student-to-student part of the community inquiry framework, as we look at the learning objectives, what is the overarching outcome of the course, and then what is the module objective, and then how in that module are we going to connect the learning activities to those module objectives, which ultimately connects to the course learning objective, and then how are we going to assess that that's been done appropriately. So some of the different ways students can connect to each other are discussion forums. That can be written forum, it can be a video such as a Flipgrid or Zoom. It can be through social media. It can be through shared collaborative work. Well, as we kind of take a 1,000-foot view of the designing process, how does that process take place? Now, one of the things I asked you in the news forum yesterday was, what is your model for remuneration for faculty? So are faculty coming in and designing the way you want it per a contract and they'll get paid if they do it, or is this kind of what I call suggestive ID? And that is, you are the expert and you're providing them suggestions, and then it's up to them whether they want to accept those or not. Well, one of the different formats that we use is we use Canvas and a course development course to mediate that relationship. But we've also transitioned to a platform called Ready for Online. And let me show you that. Ready for Online is something that it's LMS agnostic. And what it does is it allows you to have a place, and you can kind of see it right here, where the faculty member and the instructional designer work within this particular platform. So it's more of it feels more like a face-to-face course, if you will, or it's kind of LMS agnostic. So they're not overwhelmed with how it might look in the learning environment. They're just coming up with their lesson objectives, their study materials, their assignments, and their approach. Then that can be put into the LMS and fortified and made into an actual course that they can do, or depending on what your development philosophy or approach is, a learning management administrator or an instructional designer then could flesh that out, and then they could come back together and take a look at the learning environment if this is where we want it to be. And something else to keep in mind is this also includes a workload calculator, so it allows you to see in real time as assignments are added and the level of difficulty, undergrad, grad, doctoral, and things like that, what the workload output is for the particular course that's being created. It's the only real-time workload calculator that I know of. But that's just one other way to consider or look at instructional design. In other words, what philosophy am I going to take? How is that philosophy going to be received by the learner or faculty member in this case? Is it going to overwhelm them, or is it something that is in line with what they already understand, so there's not a steep learning curve as they're thinking about going from face-to-face to online? What are some particular instructional design philosophies that we have? Are we going kind of with a mashup, or are we with a particular legacy approach like ADDIE or SAM or something like that? And then how does relationship and affect become or not become a part of our instructional design processes? And then what does the overall system look like when we're designing? Just some thoughts for the day, and hopefully can provide some kind of a stimulus for our ongoing discussion about our instructional design philosophy. And then today is our first post of identifying assessments that align with the learning outcomes. How do we take that main place at where we're going and set up our assessments to augment and complement that? Something as instructional designers I know you're already in tune with, but one of the things that we've found so far that is very helpful is hearing where everybody else is at and what they're doing with these processes that we're all pretty familiar with. Enjoying it, and I'll look forward to our continued conversation in the course.